Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing with you my favorite steamy summer romance recommendations. There are a whole host of books on this list from various different genres, published at various different times. Some books super old, some books super new, and I just thought that I'd share with you guys books I've been enjoying this summer, and maybe you can find a steamy romance recommendation from this list. I will guarantee that all of the books on this list are super sexy and super steamy, so if you're looking for something that has like a lot of heart, but also like a lot of sex, I have the books for you right here. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first book that I have to share with you is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This book I talked about a little bit in my most anticipated romance reads video, and honestly, this book did not disappoint. I was about halfway through when I filmed that video, and then when I finished it, I knew instantly that this is just a 5-star read. It was so fun, so charming, and very steamy, just as Tessa Bailey usually is, and it was so fun to get to see her write in a different world, I guess. She has been working on this like Hot and Hammered series for a while, and as much as I love Home Improvement, I wanted something a little different from her for this next series, and again, this book really didn't disappoint. So the story is a Schitt's Creek inspired rom-com. Our main character, Piper, is very much Alexis Rose to the nth degree. She's unapologetically feminine and girly, and she is what probably a lot of people would consider to be vapid. Now, she has had kind of a rough time lately. She got dumped recently by her boyfriend, who she only dated for about 2 weeks. She's had kind of this string of shitty boyfriends one after the other, and this guy actually tells her to her face what he thinks of her and kind of her value, and she really takes this to heart, and she ends up vandalizing a hotel with her friend as a result. She is kind of heartbroken, and this has gotten her to kind of examine her life and kind of what she wants to do going forward, because she's just kind of a social media gal at the moment. She wants more out of life, but she isn't really sure how to go after that and, you know, the steps she would need to take to get there. But she is in luck because her stepdad is basically cutting her off unless she can prove that she is a responsible individual. She doesn't have a job, so her stepdad sends her to where her biological father grew up, this hometown. I think it's in the Pacific Northwest, and Piper is kind of left to live in this gross bar that is in disrepair that her dad used to own, and she has to kind of figure out her life. And who better to help her do that with than Brendan, who is the head of a crabbing boat and is just, I mean, honestly, like such a grump. Seeing Brendan and Piper interact and kind of fall for each other over the course of the story was truly a delight. I think of all of these books, this might be my absolute favorite. It just screamed summer to me, and I like that neither character had to completely change their personality to end up in a relationship that was satisfying. Piper still got to be really feminine, really girly, and get to go shopping all the time. Brendan was really supportive of this and didn't tell her that she was vapid or stupid for wanting the things that she wanted. And then Brendan, being this kind of grumpy fisherman, Piper never encouraged him to stop being the person that he is, stop being set in his ways, or to, you know, stop crabbing altogether, because it is sort of a dangerous career. They just supported each other and helped each other kind of grow and mature as the story went on, and I loved seeing that. I love seeing that in romances. They fit together perfectly as puzzle pieces, and honestly, the sex in this book was just really hot. So if you're looking for a really steamy summer romance, you like Schitt's Creek, or you're just looking for a story that is a little different than maybe something that you would read on an everyday basis, I think this one definitely fits the bill, and I would highly recommend it. Next up, we have a little bit of the variety that I promised to you at the beginning of this video. We have Mine Till Midnight by Lisa Kleypas. This is a slightly older historical romance. I think this was published in the early 2000s, and I really enjoyed this one, which I wasn't expecting because I haven't had the best luck with Lisa Kleypas in the past. Anyway, this story centers on Amelia and Cam. Amelia is super strong and stoic, and she is just trying to keep her family on the right path. Now, her mother and father passed away quite a few years ago, and her family has come into a title. They used to be just kind of like normal townspeople, I guess you could say. They weren't super poor, but they definitely weren't titled, and they've come into this title and a little bit of money, and they're kind of having to figure out what to do with it. Now, Amelia's eldest brother, who kind of holds this title for the family, I guess, is hell-bent on destroying the family legacy and spend all their money by gambling, so Amelia is having to kind of keep him in check and then make sure that all of her younger siblings are taken care of. And this is sort of a lonely endeavor, right? Like, you have to take care of your family alone, but Amelia is not alone because she ends up meeting Cam unexpectedly one day. And Cam is this brooding, kind of grumpy guy who is immediately just very taken with Amelia. I wouldn't call this an insta-love story by any means, but he is instantly attracted to her and definitely makes his attraction known. And the story is just about Amelia kind of making sure that her family is heading in the right direction, that she is making sure everybody is taken care of, and along the way, Cam ends up kind of weaseling his way into her life and taking care of her because there is no one to take care of her at the moment. I loved this story. It felt really sexy and different than any other historical romance that I've read recently. I liked seeing this family kind of rise up from just like the ranks of normal people to become sort of high society people. Seeing how each of the younger daughters kind of reacted in high society was just so fun to read about. And overall, I just really liked how mature and sexy the romance was between Amelia and Cam. I also think if you're looking for a series to sink your teeth into, this would definitely fit the bill. I personally love reading the first book in a series and being instantly taken with all of the side characters and like excited to read their stories, and that was how I felt about this one. And I think if you're looking for a historical romance to get into this summer, you should definitely consider Mine Till Midnight. So next up we have a book that I didn't think that I would be recommending or enjoying at all, honestly, and it is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Now, I did not have the best luck last summer with Beach Read. It was a book that I thought promised something that it couldn't deliver. However, I think People We Meet on Vacation was genuinely the perfect book to read on vacation. So this story is about Poppy and Alex, and I want to say they meet traveling home one summer together. It gave me kind of like When Harry Meets Sally vibes at the very beginning. They drive home together one summer because they go to the same college and I guess they are from the same hometown, and when they drive together, they sort of strike up a friendship. And after this friendship is struck up, they go on vacations together every single summer, and this is their main way to kind of maintain their friendship. Until one summer, something goes terribly wrong, and these sort of summer vacations that they go on together are kind of cut short and we don't know what happened. Until one day, Poppy decides that she is going to kind of break the silence, reach out to Alex, and see if he wants to go on one last vacation with her. Alex reluctantly agrees, and they sort of reconnect in this extremely hot vacation setting. I think they go to California, perhaps? It's just really, really hot. It's kind of like a desert setting wherever they go, and they are kind of stuck in this shitty little Airbnb together as they reminisce on the past summers that they had together. So the story is told kind of dual timeline. You've got all of the past summers, and then you have this current summer and how they're dealing with this past event that we don't know, what happened. And as things kind of unfold side by side, we get to see this epic love story that has been unfolding between Alex and Poppy for years, even if neither of them were really aware of it. I think this romance in particular would be really perfect for people who like fanfiction and end up reading it covertly in the backseat on family road trips. I just loved the story. I feel like it was super steamy. I feel like this is the kind of story that, like I said, fanfiction lovers are just craving, and it's got all of the requisite angst that I personally want in a summer steamy romance. I think that Emily Henry really knocked it out of the park with this one. There's not a lot of that like depressing shit to bog this one down like there was with Beach Read, so I think if you didn't like that story, you might enjoy this one. I just think this is a really successful romance, and I think if you're looking for a book that is set in a vacation setting, you're not going to be disappointed with this one. Next up, I have another kind of unexpected pick. I have Magic Bites by Alona Andrews. Now, this book is the one that cemented my decision to make this more than just like a stereotypically summer, beachy, steamy read list. I wanted to give y'all a little bit of variety besides just typical contemporaries. So I downloaded the first 4 audiobooks in this series for a vacation that I went on recently after getting fully vaccinated, and I don't know about y'all, but for me, I love reading long series on vacations. It just lights me up, and especially if it is a paranormal romance series, I try to like seek one good series out for every vacation that I'm on, and then I just read them all back to back. It's satisfying. I feel like I'm very immersed in the story. Anyway, this series is about our heroine, Kate Daniels, as I'm sure you've probably guessed since it's called the Kate Daniels series, but it is set in a magic-ravaged Atlanta. So in this world, we have technology and magic battling each other, and there's different waves that happen. So if there's a magic wave that goes on, all of the technology of the day ends up just stopping. You can't make phone calls, you can't use cars, and you can't live in high-rise buildings. They've all kind of crumbled as a result of magic. And then you'll have waves of technology when you can use your phone, you can use cars, but these waves are unexpected. So the cities are kind of lawless, no one is really in control, and Kate Daniels is in charge of detective work in the city. She is a detective who ends up solving these sort of like magical crimes, and along the way she ends up getting in leagues with the Shifters. Now, the Shifters are run by one particular alpha who is called the Beast Lord, and this is Kate Daniels' love interest as the series continues on. The series is basically magic detective work, I guess you could say, mixed with paranormal creatures, mixed with honestly anything you could possibly name. There's vampires in this series too. It's a series that's hard to put into words, but it is extremely unique, extremely sexy, and I think if you're someone who really enjoyed Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, you would really, really like this series. It's got kind of a similar setup, but I think it is done perhaps a little bit more successfully since these books are not like 700 pages long. I really would recommend this series if you are a big paranormal romance fan. I'm sure many of you have already read this because I know a lot of y'all recommended this series to me in the past, but it was super fun reading this on vacation. I think if you're looking for instant gratification, this series might not be it for you, but if you're wanting kind of a sexy, slow burn, heavy on the plot sort of romance series, I think you're really gonna enjoy these books, and I honestly highly recommend them for steamy summer romance reading. Next up, I feel, is another sort of unexpected pick. If you have been watching my channel for any length of time, I have the Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. Now, I wouldn't have picked this book up on my own, admittedly. I read it for a list video that's coming up, but this one really took me by surprise, and I ended up giving this book 5 stars. It's about single mom and statistician Jess, who is this independent contractor just trying to make enough money to support her daughter, and some of her family members around her. She lives in this super tight-knit community with her grandparents and with some other neighbors who kind of like help out whenever Jess has to like go run errands or whatever. And at the moment, Jess is really not looking for love. Like I said, she's just trying to make ends meet. She's just trying to live her life. But when she finds out that this kind of hot, grumpy guy that's been frequenting one of her favorite coffee shops is the founder of a kind of new database dating app, she's kind of intrigued and she wants to see what it's all about. So Genetically is this matchmaking service where you submit your DNA and it tells you who your soulmate could potentially be, depending on who has put their DNA samples into this app. It'll tell you if you are like a 70% match with someone or a 100% match with someone, and whenever Jess submits her sample, she finds out that she is a near perfect match for the founder of the app, the grumpy guy that has been going to this coffee shop, River. And this is quite a big deal because the application has never had a match quite as strong as River and Jess's, and since this would be super good for publicity, River and Jess end up embarking on this sort of like fake dating, real dating scenario for publicity. And getting to see Jess and River kind of overcome some of their fears about relationships was really, really satisfying. I honestly loved this book. I feel like it was a really fresh story for Christina Lauren, and I feel like Jess was one of their more likable heroines. I feel like that tends to be my issue with Christina Lauren books for the most part. Their heroines tend to be kind of one note or very stereotypical, and I feel like Jess had a lot on her plate, a lot to handle, and did it all with grace, so I really liked reading about her. And then River, I felt like, while he wasn't the most fleshed out hero that I've ever read, I do feel like he had a little bit more zest than maybe some of Christina Lauren's other heroes. And honestly, yeah, just seeing Jess and River come together was really, really fun. I loved the science behind the story, and if you're looking for a story that feels really satisfying and complete, I think you'd really enjoy this one. And if you, like me, are a skeptic of Christina Lauren stories, I really do think you should give this one a go. Now for my last pick, which is probably my most controversial pick, since none of my Goodreads friends seem to enjoy this one, Much Ado About You by Samantha Young. Now this one, just like the Soulmate Equation, is one that I probably wouldn't have picked up on my own had it not been for the list video that I'm working on, but this one honestly pleasantly took me by surprise. I think going in with low expectations probably helped, but I do think this book stands well on its own. This book is about our heroine Evie, who is trying to get some perspective after she recently lost her job. She's in her 30s, she's been kind of successful in the past, but she doesn't really know where she wants her life to go from here. So after doing some research, Evie finds this sort of all expenses paid holiday that she can go on to the UK. She's a really big Shakespeare fan. She's really into reading, so this is the perfect opportunity for her. And the opportunity is to work in a bookstore in England in exchange for free rent for a little while. She gets to stay pretty much as long as she wants, or as long as her visa will allow, and in the meantime, she can figure out what she wants out of life. But as this is a romance, Evie is not just out to figure out her life. She ends up meeting a super hot farmer named Roan, and she also ends up helping the townspeople solve their problems. Now, I think if you are looking for a super realistic story with perhaps the most likable heroine, this is not going to be a story for you. There's the save the town aspect, a town where Evie does not actually belong. She gets to live this all expenses paid life, and she meets a hot guy. It doesn't really add up. It doesn't really sound realistic, but I think if you're willing to sort of like overlook all of that and just like buy in to this story, I think you're really gonna like it. I really liked Roan. I liked the way that Roan and Evie kind of interact throughout the story, and I kind of like that Evie was willing to reach out and make new friends and meet new people in this place where she knows absolutely no one. I think if you're someone who wants some escapism and the idea of living in England for a little while and making a life of your own sounds exciting, I think you're gonna like this book. If you're a cynic like me, you might not love this book. Again, I was able to put my cynicism aside for this one, but I will say this is probably the most like contentious pick on this list. But if you like Hallmark style stories and you like a good slow burn romance, I think you're really gonna like this book. The corn shucking was delightful when it did happen, and Roan was just, I don't know, like the Brit of my dreams. So that's it. Those are all of the summer romance recommendations that I have for y'all. Hopefully you found something on this list that intrigues you. Hopefully you have found something that you want to sink your teeth into for just a little while. But thanks so much for watching. I love y'all so much, and until next Sunday.